Hello, do life and embody you love chicks. I have an amazing guest for you today, and I'm so excited. This is the lovely Stacy, who is a beautiful Christian mom, wife, entrepreneur, coach, counselor. I mean, there's more, right? But as you can see, she wears many, many hats. And we have a so important topic of conversation for you. No matter what type of a journey you're on, I don't care if it's health, life, spiritual, the topic that we're going to conversate about today affects all of those things. But before we jump into it, Stacy, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a background about like, who's Stacy? What do you do? Who do you help? What makes you so cool? Because I think you're super cool, but tell them what you're all about.
Hello. Thank you, Nikki. That was such a beautiful introduction. Okay. So what is most helpful and interesting to know here? Well, I am a Christian mama of 3 boys, and I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I am a board certified coach, a licensed professional counselor, and a hypnotherapist. So I have done a lot of things, including escape corporate life. I found out early on that just wasn't quite going to work for me. I needed the flexibility of not just schedule, but creativity to really put transformation out there. I'm not a follow the rules and the dots that someone prescribes to me type person. I like to color outside the lines. So that's the direction I went in, and for 10 years focused in the career space, particularly for women. And then just recently, I've taken the very best of what my clients have loved there and what I've loved to do in the deep work of mindset, heart, and healing. And I've taken that into living this concept of a right ordered life of faith, family, and purpose. So for all you women out there who are feeling tired and trapped doing all the things, I help you get a right ordered life of faith, family, and purpose. So you have peace and joy, and you're excited to wake up to that life each day.
I love it so much. I love it so much.
Thanks.
Awesome. So I wanted to chat about worthiness today. When you and I were discussing like, well, this is so broad. Like all the things that go into what you're all about are so broad, and they're also important. But with the work that I do with women, which is weight loss coaching, as you know, but it really ends up being life coaching because it's all so connected, right? And this one topic, I see it everywhere. It's a very heavy topic in what I do, and it's worthiness. And
yes.
So when you mentioned that, I was like, yes, that's it. That's what we're talking about. It affects everything, right? If we don't feel worthy. And so first of all, some women, I think, probably heard that and it went, oof, they felt it right in their heart. Like, oof, that's me. I think sometimes women are surprised that they don't feel worthy about things, though. It's not always super apparent. So why don't you just start off with just general overview? Where do you see this affecting women? In what ways does it surface? Maybe that would be a good starting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's sometimes we have difficulty identifying what it is and naming it. But what we're talking about is that feeling of smallness, of less than, of not deserving. And until we are tested or we are faced with triggers, we don't even necessarily know that this is an issue in our life. Mm-hmm. And so just to kind of test listeners here, because, worthiness is not just I am or I'm not. It's not a binary yes or no. There's a lot of space along the scale of worthiness where you may feel worthy in one sense, but not in another. So for example, do you feel worthy of God's love for you? Do you feel worthy of romantic love from your husband or partner? Do you feel worthy of financial abundance? Do you feel worthy of great respect and success? Do you feel worthy of a beautiful body? You may not react to some of those, where others you might feel that contraction, where there's that thing, that one particular thing where you would rather hide from. Does that make sense?
Totally. Absolutely. And I see this a lot. I have a lot of women who I coach who are extremely successful in multiple areas of life. They have a very successful business or career, great marriage, wonderful children, like everything seems all buttoned up, but they are really struggling with the weight piece. And a lot of times it does tie back to worthiness and lots of reasons for that. But so, yeah, I mean, I can see where it affects people in some other areas and not others, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels, you don't notice it as much when you feel safe because you have control over the doing. I can do work and make money. That feels maybe simple for you. It's within your competency and very under control. But maybe the emotional piece of feeling truly loved and accepted for who you are, that one's a lot harder. You can't necessarily control that. And it's shaped from how we grew up, what was modeled to us, what was said to us before we even had a choice. And so that's inside of you. And so you might be controlling all those pieces in the outer world, but there's that inner mess that we all have to a degree that takes some healing work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just even knowing that it's there is required before you can move past it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a big example too that I've seen both in men and women, worthiness of God's love and grace. Absolutely. The very first one that you mentioned. I mean, that's heavy, right? But like so many people will be like, yes, I believe. And I believe that Jesus died for my sin and, you know, all of these things, but then they still wrestle with feelings of inadequacy or yes, but God can't forgive that sin. Or if people are so hard on their own past and the guilt and the shame and not being able to let it go and just accept that God's mercy is what it is. You didn't earn it. It's cool. It's fine. It's still covered, but not being able to move past these things. And it really hinders people's walk in their faith and all of these things. So yeah, I think it's just so woven into everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think people don't realize how much every day is this battleground. You are up against the lies of the enemy who will always try and tell you you're doing it wrong. You're not worthy. You're up against the culture and standards of comparison, expectations that other people have for you. You are, a lot of us, suppressing and not even dealing with, but feeling the effects of traumas, rejection, things that have happened in our past. Then there's the run-of-the-mill failures where, you know, I'm sure your clients all have them. That's why they come to you, is because they've had a failure with trying to lose weight. So we're up against all the things that we just don't follow through on. We fall short. And that sparks the self-criticism. So now we've got our own inner chatter. And that tape plays in our head over and over again, judging, chiding, criticizing ourselves. You're up against all of that every day. And if you don't have the proper tools, if you haven't built the muscle for how to handle them, then you might go through your life asleep. You will not have that fullness of joy, fulfillment, light that God has intended for you. And you certainly won't use the full capacity, but the potential of your talents.
Absolutely. Touch on that a little bit more, how people stay asleep, because it directly related to not feeling worthy to do things. Because I know exactly what you're talking about and I see it all the time. It makes me crazy and I want to shake people and be like, come on. But can you like jump down that rabbit hole a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I give you an example of a current client of mine where she will not leave this job that she hates and that she doesn't like who she is in it. Because when we talk about why not and how are you feeling when you think about making a transition, she says, I'm scared. And part of that is, well, I don't know that a company will see my value. I don't have any transferable skills. Like, what else would I do next with my skill set? What if I just never find anything better and it's always like this? And that comes from a place of a lack of worthiness, from this belief of, of not enough. Right? And it's really devastating because it's not truth, but to her it is. And it's extremely emotional. But to me, it's like, I wish you could just jump in me for a second and see who you are, because you'd like fall off the chair. But we get so stuck in the lie, the what we think is truth, because we usually believe what's in our head. Oh, it's in our head, therefore it must be true. No, it's not.
I tell my clients that, and the listeners all the time. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And in fact, most of the things that you think aren't actually true.
Exactly. Most
me too. Myself included.
Yeah, they're not useful. They don't serve you, but they're stuck in there and you're living according to it. So this client of mine, this example is, she's still in this job. It's like, okay, so you're doing the job well enough, but stop for a minute. Can you imagine the extent to which your light would shine, the extent that you would have a positive impact, and who you would become, your higher self, if you are actually aligned with your work? You're doing what you're meant to do, and you believed that you deserve to do that. Could you imagine that impact? But a lot of people can't see it. And so they're stuck playing small, staying in situations and jobs that they don't like because of the stories that make them afraid and make them feel like they don't deserve better. Mm-hmm. Is that an okay example there?
Yes, no, that's a perfect example. And I think that's how I see it show up for many people, is just not being willing to put themselves out there, not being able to go after they want. Actually, a lot of women that I work with don't know what they want. That's something that we work on, is like, well, what do you even want? Because we get so bogged down with doing for others and doing for others, sometimes to check out and not deal with our own emotions, but sometimes to prove our worthiness. If I'm doing all these things for other people, I'm earning my value, right? And so by the time you do that for 20 years as an adult, plus everything that you're carrying with you from childhood, of course, you look around and you're like, I don't even know. I don't know if I'm happy. I don't know if I have joy. I don't know if I like the things that I'm doing. How did I get in this job? What's going on here? And like, they don't even stop to question if they're doing the things that they want to do. What do you do for fun? I don't know. Well, what things do you like? I don't know. Because it's just like autopilot rat race. Yeah. And it's like, well, take a time out, look around, figure out what you actually like, figure out your opinions. And then like, let's figure it out and step into living the way that you want to live. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you're always afraid that you're going to fail at doing things, or that you're not good enough, or you're not worth doing it, you're right. People stay just stuck in the belief that they hold, which is usually not true at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's true. You're 2 feet from gold. You just don't even know it. You're right there.
Literally right there. Sometimes you're like, if we can just break past this. So not to always use the weight loss example, but it's easy for me because it's what I'm steeped in every day, is like, a lot of women first of all, won't invest in themselves for their health. That's a big one, is like, well, I shouldn't spend money on that. I should spend money over here. Not really seeing the full picture of like, well, if you don't invest in your health right now, your health's going to cost you a lot of money down the road. So just financially, that doesn't make sense. But even women who will invest the finances, but then they won't turn around and invest the time that it takes to even just put aside a little bit of time to meal prep. Oh, my husband needs me to do this. My kids need me to do that. And it's like, your kids and your husband actually need you to be healthy, right? Not running yourself ragged. So these are all just things that they're the stories that we believe, and it keeps us stuck. Mm-hmm. But they don't feel worthy of investing the time into themselves.
I think the way that people approach things, and this is natural because many of us are fixers. And so we look at everything from a doing perspective, which is the tip of the funnel. It's not the top, the widest part that feeds the bottom of the funnel, but we go to the tip of the funnel to, okay, well, I will be worthy when I do blank. Like you were saying, it's the measure of, well, what is the value my output? And then that determines my worthiness. So we get stuck in the doing. I've been there too, not even knowing that I was so wrapped up in proving myself that I have to be successful or I can't live with myself. Like, what? Who says that? It's so easy to get trapped in that. And that's how we look for a solution too, is the doing part. But it's not in the doing, not at first. It's in who you're being. It's in the identity piece. And until you understand who you want to be, and until you choose to shape an identity that supports your highest and best self, you will never make sustainable, effective change in how you show up in your life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It all starts in your thoughts.
Yeah.
100%. Your thoughts determine how you're going to act. And then how you act determines how you're going to have results. But everybody wants to start with the result. What do I have to do to get the result?
Yep.
And so specifically with weight loss, it's like, what do? We diet. We restrict ourselves. It's not sustainable. So we fall off the horse, so to speak. And then we view this as a failure, which it's not, because diets just aren't sustainable. And then round and around we go. And it's like, nope. Shift your identity to somebody who just is taking care of her body because you love yourself and you want to take care of your body and you see yourself through your father's eyes. Mm-hmm. We almost put on this hat of martyrdom sometimes, I think, too, as women. Like, well, if I'm going and I'm grinding for everybody else, it's okay if I'm not taking care of myself because I'm doing all these things for other people. And the reality is, and we can even sometimes, I think, use our Christianity to be like a Martha or Mary. Am I getting it backwards? But where it's like, go, that it's okay because I'm doing all of these very righteous things. And it's like, yeah, but I don't feel as though God wants us to totally ignore taking care of ourselves so that we can then take care of others. Like, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. It enables you to go out into the world and be the light and be, if you're run down, you don't like what you're doing for work, you're in a body, it's very uncomfortable for you. Your schedule is a disaster. There's no white space to speak of. There's no downtime. It's just go. You're crabby, girl. You ain't fun to be around. Come on, let's be serious. Like, you're going to go be your best self when you value yourself enough to take care of yourself, to establish some boundaries, to do, now, I don't want to say do the things because that's what we're talking about, being a doer, but doing them from a better place, from this place of like self-respect and love and knowing it's okay to do that. Like, you're not a bad person if you pour into your own personal development.
Yeah. And when you think about it, if you want to help the poor, is the best way to do that to be poor yourself? If you want to help the sick, should you be sick so that you can help them? If you want to, giving away everything, right? If you want to be able to self-give and empty yourself out, do you do that from an empty cup?
Yeah. What are you giving then?
It's just not the best way. And so that needs to change. And it's very uncomfortable for people where it's like, whoa, wait a second. I actually have to pay attention to myself and my feelings, right? Because feelings are scary. That's why we avoid anything, right? Is because we don't want to feel any negative emotion. And when we have to look at ourselves, what do I need? What do I want? And how do I arrange that? How do I make that happen? It feels so foreign. And we just don't even want to go there because we don't want the negative emotion. And so nothing really changes because we've conditioned ourselves now that it feels better, or at least numb and neutral, to just close our eyes, la, 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 and keep going, Energizer bunny mode for other people and all external demands.
Yeah. And then where I think it's such a slippery slope, the listeners, I think, have heard me talk about this before, so sorry to be redundant, ladies, but when women finally are like, okay, I'm going to conquer these thoughts and I'm going to handle, whatever, they start jumping into like the personal development rabbit hole, I call it. Mm-hmm. A lot of times there's some misguided advice out there that like, you should just feel happy all the time. You should feel grateful all the time. Now, I'm a big fan of gratitude for lots of reasons, but not false, just not addressing actual things. Like you can have negative emotions. You just have to process through them. You're not a bad person if you feel sad sometimes or you feel ungrateful but I think especially for Christian women, we judge ourselves for having negative feelings.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be happy all the time because I have God's grace. And it's like, well, if you read through the Bible, I think it talks about fear and anxiety more than anything.
Yes.
Oh, very, very common. So but we feel anxious and then we're like, I don't have enough faith. And it's like, well, okay, we can work on our faith and we can work on our anxiety, but like, don't judge yourself or put meaning on all of these negative emotions that you're having. It's okay that they're there. Like, step back and go, okay, well, what does this mean? And how do I address this? So don't stuff it aside. Don't be falsely happy all the time, which is what happens when you jump into the personal development space sometimes, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What tips do you have for women who are like, oof, okay, yeah, there's some unworthiness going on here for me, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Oh, I love this. So as I've been mentioning, is the whole lens that you have to look through is a shift from the inside out. Don't just grab onto the doing. There will be doing, but know that it's going to come from the inside out. And that means that at the very beginning of this, to kind of prep yourself to be able to move through it, is that at times you're going to feel uncomfortable, and that discomfort is not bad. It's not wrong. It doesn't mean you're struggling and you're failing. Discomfort is natural and you can handle it. So that's really the first thing you need to know, because if you cannot hold steady in that discomfort, then you'll never enter into this and everything will just stay the same. You'll just grab at low-hanging fruit that are Band-Aids that cover over it. And you'll say, oh, I feel better. But yeah, but that was actually because you just went on Amazon and bought you something and got a dopamine hit. That wasn't mean because you shifted into worthiness. Like, those are different things. Mm-hmm. So it's got to start that way. And then it's, as I was mentioning before, is re-establishing your identity. And if you've never thought about this and you've never taken the paintbrush to this, the authorship of it, it's time to do it. And it's guided by, when you think about identity, okay, what is my core? What are some factors of identity? Well, if you have faith, right? So God's love for you, you as a beloved daughter of Christ, is going to be an anchor of that identity. Your values are going to be part of that identity. And that's one of the biggest things that I teach people, is how do you determine your inherent value? It's not what anybody else says, not what they like about you. It's not what you got promoted for. How do you determine your value? Because when you decide what that is, so for example, the extent to which I show love to my family and those around me, the extent to which I act in integrity, the degree to which I practice my faith and grow in it, those are examples that you set. And when you do that, no one can take that away from you. Nobody can tell you your value, because you defined it, you own it, and it's up to you to evaluate that. So that's a huge piece right there.
And it's so freeing. Like, this is the part where you get to where it's like, I tell people all the time, I'm a little bit crass sometimes. I'm like, listen, what other people think of you is none of your business. I don't care. Stay in your lane. Like, they can think whatever they want about you. The opinions of others means nothing about you. It means nothing about you. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't know you. They're making assumptions. They're busy in their own headspace, live in their own world, either projecting things onto you or they have partial truths. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter why they think the things about you that they think. Don't worry about it. Who do you want to be? Who are you really in your core? Who are you through God's eyes? Yep. I don't have daughters, but so I don't know why I use this analogy. But when I'm talking to moms who have daughters or even who have sons, but it's like, how do you see your daughter?
Yeah.
Bet you don't see your daughter the same way she sees herself, because our children have insecurities too and whatever. And when like a mom can look at her teenage daughter, let's say, or her young adult daughter who's beating herself up, not taking care of herself, in and out of terrible relationships. And you're like, if you saw yourself the way I see you, the way I know that you really, really are, but you haven't developed into that person yet, but I know who you're going to be. I can see who you are in your heart and in your core and your worthiness and your value and how you accept things that are beneath you, way beneath you. Moms get that, but it's like, but you're Christ, you're God's daughter. How does God see you? He knows all of your capabilities. He made you. He doesn't make mistakes. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. It can't be bad. Like, you can't be bad. God made you perfect. Okay, maybe you got to shift some things. Great. How does God see you?
Yeah.
And then you can step into that very, 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 very uncomfortably, because change is really uncomfortable, especially shifting our identity. That's one of the hardest things that I see people work through, is changing your identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the gap for people is, so let's say you're open to this, exploring what makes you worthy and defining your value, creating this new identity. Let's say you're open to that and you engage in the steps, the activities to do that. What happens next is even more challenging, because you have to condition it, right? You're not just going to believe it once. That's why affirmations don't really work. Because let's say if we're doing financial coaching, then people say, I am a millionaire. Well, you have so much cognitive dissonance in your mind. Your brain automatically says, that ain't true, never will be.
So yeah, don't you have to have an affirmation that your brain actually believes could be true? You can't make those big leaps.
You're going to use that. Yes, you have to phrase it and you have to condition it in terms of frequency and let it emotionally anchor. It can't just be cognitive. You have to have an emotional response for it to anchor in your body. And that's the gap. So I had a client once where I got on the phone with her to do a check-in, and she's like, man, I'm just not feeling positive. I'm just struggling here. And I just don't feel like this identity and these new beliefs I created, I don't feel like they're, really helping me. It's like, okay, so tell me what you're doing to condition it, because I have my clients build what I call a mindset toolbox. So you have a whole range of tools to use for this conditioning. So tell me what you're doing. It's like, well, I listen to my, my soundtrack of awesome, like once a week. And, a couple times a week, I'm doing my gratitude list. And, I do, sometimes, I do a meditation like Saturday morning. It's like, okay, well, there's your problem, because that's not enough. It's not enough. It's the equivalent of this. It's, you don't want to go through all of this. Okay, I'm sitting with discomfort. I'm recreating my identity. I'm defining my value, right? And then let's say we switch to a gym analogy for this. And then you say, okay, cool. So I know what weight I want to be. I know how I want to look and how I want to feel when I'm healthy. And I'm going to eat healthy one day a week. And I'm going to go to the gym one day a week for 30 minutes. And then you expect you're going to look like Jillian Michaels and you're going to have this whole new self. It ain't going to happen. Doesn't work. It's the same thing with the mind. So you have to condition it, because what you believe is true, what you'll actually take in and believe, is from repeated exposure. And that's why you wonder about how people believe the craziest things, or people who watch certain news channels believe, the certain news messages that slant a certain way. It's because they're repeatedly exposed to it. So you can do that too, but you have to intentionally weave it into your day with routines and little, I call it threading throughout your day what the new belief is and connecting with that, because it will take, like, I promise you that. I've seen too many people that I've helped completely change, but you have to do that conditioning. It will take, though. That's the cool thing. Is if you're willing to show up and you're willing to have someone take your hand, walk you through and show you how to do this, it will take, and you will live from a place of worthiness and courage and joy.
Oh, and this is why I'm obsessed with coaching now. I'm just obsessed with it, because you have to have partnership with somebody on this journey. It doesn't have to be a coach. I mean, I think that's why like church is so important, and fellowship, and you are the sum of the four people you spend the most time with, all those silly cliches. But to a certain degree, it's true, because this stuff doesn't change right away. It's every stinking day. It's deciding who you are and how you're going to show up for yourself every single day. And then some days you suck at it. And if you let that go, see, I knew I couldn't do this, you're done. You'll never get there, because you're going to have struggles. And that's why you need somebody in your corner who's walked the walk already and knows where the landmines are coming. Yeah. This is what I tell people before I start them. I'm like, listen, I don't know exactly what your body's going to tell us. We're going to figure it out, but I need your input. And the only thing I got going for me to help you out is I know where the landmines are coming. I've just done it so many times with so many women. I know where it's coming. Yeah. It's not an unsolvable problem, and we're going to figure it out. But if you're solo mission in your own head, thinking that like you're going to have those days where it feels impossible and you're just going to quit, because it's not fast. Changing how you think can't possibly be done quickly. It's not a motivational tape. And then you leave the event and you're like, cool, I'm so fired up. Nope. That's a feeling. Motivation's a feeling. You're going to have that high for about 3 days. And then you have to go enter into your real life with all of your current mindset things. You got to work through them. It's a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's totally
absolutely
worth it.
Is. And bottom line is, the inside of the jar can't read the outside label. And the thinking.
Explain this to me.
Yeah. So we are all inside our own jars, and we cannot read the label that is on the outside. You know, even when you study this stuff, like I've worked with 7 different coaches for business, personal, faith. I have a spiritual director. Like I always work with people, because as good as I am at this and as much as I know, I still have that space where I can use somebody to help me tune up what I can't see, or to challenge me in what I'm not quite bringing myself to challenge. Like I love that. It makes me a better coach. It makes me a better person. So I will always do that in a heartbeat. It's so worth it. You know, and as Albert Einstein says, is the same thinking that created the problem can't get you out of it.
Absolutely.
Right? So you're using your same thinking that created the problem, and you can't get out of it that way. You know, and so, you know, sometimes that first commitment on the walk to worthiness is committing to getting the help.
100%. You need objectivity.
Yeah.
You can know a topic. You can be an expert in a topic and need objectivity. When I was struggling with some health things, I didn't hire a coach because they knew anything I didn't know. Like literally, I didn't learn a new thing, but I needed objectivity to point it out, because I'm in the thick of it. I'm in my emotions. I know I'm going to act with short-term results in mind, and that's not what my body wants. So I need somebody who's going to be like, no, come on, you know better. What are you doing? That's how I respond. Don't worry. I don't talk to my clients that way. I like people talk to me that way though, because then I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, got it.
I like it bossy.
Yeah. I like to be bossed around. I'm not super bossy to my clients, but I like coaches who will be like, get your poop in a group. What are we doing here? Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
But I need that objectivity. We all do. It's like, for the listeners who work in medicine, we joke about this all the time. Like, you know what to do if somebody else's kid gets hurt. You can go right into action. When it's your own kid, you're like, ah. I mean, I wasn't that way. I was like, hey, you're fine. But most people freak out when it's their own person. You can't be objective.
Yeah.
You're too in the emotion of it. You need somebody outside to just go, here, okay, these are the facts. This is what we do. We have a roadmap for this. You just gotta beat up the process.
Yeah. And really realizing what stops you from making the change, because it's an irony where our primitive brain wants the path of least resistance. It will always direct you towards what is easier. And so the irony is that having a coach to help you get an outcome is easier. And yet we resist that. And the real reason for that, the only thing that makes sense, like why you wouldn't just do the easier way, is because of that fear of what you're going to feel, the fear of what you're going to have to give up, the fear of it being too hard, the fear of it not working. So that's the real piece to starting this journey and having that help, because most people I have found are not conscious of that big boulder that is fear that's blocking them. And they need help to just get the boulder out of the way so they can even start the journey.
Absolutely. And if you don't feel like you're worthy of the transformation, it's going to be hard to start.
Yeah.
If you don't believe that you can do it, it's going to be hard to start. I always tell my clients, I'm like, I know you don't believe right now because you've been beat up by the diet industry for decades. Some of my clients got put on diets by doctors when they were 8 years old, and they're in their 60s and 70s now. I mean, we're talking about undoing decades and decades and decades of this like emotional abuse that you go through almost when you're on this diet cycle. And I'm like, so I don't expect that your belief is going to be extremely high right now, but you are working with me because you trust me and you trust that I have a process. So you're just going to have to borrow my belief for a minute.
Yeah.
But when we start getting things moving, it starts to build your own library of evidence. You start going, oh, wow, that changed pretty quick. And I didn't have to do anything crazy to make it happen. Okay. And then you slowly start to build that belief in yourself. Ultimately, that's what I want for people, is to have this belief in themselves and not be dependent on anything or anybody. But yeah, like you said, it all comes back to identity.
Yeah, it does. And so I think a main takeaway is, yes, you can feel worthy. Yes, you can be who you want to be. You can come so much closer to the life and the vision that God has for you. Huge change in your life in all these dimensions is possible. And yes, if you do the work, that's what I love about, you and I having hacked these processes that we do, is I know my roadmap works. The only variable is you. So let's help you make that choice just right now to just trust and start, because the roadmap works. Just show up and we'll be there right with you. So it's possible. It's possible. And there is a way that works. I think that's just a huge takeaway, because so many people, they just need to have hope.
Yeah. And it's not beat up the same process you've already tried. It's not bury your head in the sand. It's not bully yourself. You're not going to bully yourself into just buckling down and doing the things.
Yeah.
Which I say that mockingly, but directed at me. You guys don't feel judged. That was on me. I was always like, I just need to buckle down and do it. I know what to do. I can't make myself do it. Nope. It all starts in the mind. Stacy, you're so wonderful. I just love you to pieces. Where can women follow you, learn more about you, learn to work with you? How could the listeners connect with you?
Yeah. So you can always find me on my website, stacysantiago.com. And I've got a great quiz there for you. It's free, 3 minutes, and it will help you figure out what's blocking you from making yourself a priority. So you can go there and get some clarity and some real insight into that. And it's right in the picture at the top of my homepage, stacysantiago.com. So you can do that. And maybe Nikki will put some magic links for you in show notes, or
I will put the links in the show notes for you guys. And also, if you're one of my clients, you probably are getting some homework this week, because I love a good quiz and this sounds amazing.
Yes, it's pretty cool.
I will definitely put it in the links.
I'm honestly, I'm not all over Instagram and this and that. I do like Facebook for, I think what it is, it does actually allow some people to build a good bridge. So I love getting a nice little DM on Facebook. I love a direct email, stacy@stacysantiago.com. So yeah, I'm very easy to find, and I love responding. And I know you know, a lot of people hold back on reaching out, even my clients who pay me money. I'm like, why are you not writing me? Well, I just feel like I share so much of a mess. And I'm like, dude, listen, you are never a bother.
Yeah,
I think
I'm here for it. That's what I'm here for.
Yes, please write me more. So really, I'm one of those, like, write me. I'll be like, oh, a message. And it'll just like make my day. So reach out, contact me. If you know, share takeaways from today. If there's anything I can be a help with at all, I'm just overjoyed to be able to do that.
I love it. Thank you so much, listeners. I will put all those links that she just mentioned, the website, her Facebook handle. Go do the quiz. It sounds amazing. I'm going to go do the quiz. I just love quizzes. But this sounds like I have a quiz as well. And there's so much work to make if you're going to make them good. You know what I mean? But I know how you do everything is like on point. So I'm super excited to go take your quiz. And thank you so, so much for being here. Like, I think this is just I can't think of a more important topic, really. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us on this. And
yeah, thank you, Nikki, and lots of love there for your listeners. And I hope that it's helpful for them.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'll catch you chicks next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.